I can't even describe what I'm feeling right now. It's day 30. It's the last day of our 30-day yoga challenge. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. This is an incredible feeling. Rather than spending this session simply focusing on taking our yoga practice to the next level and doing the most strenuous thing that I could possibly have you do, we're gonna do the total opposite of that. And if you've been closely following these 30 days, you know that's totally my style. Is for us to really do a more therapeutic yoga practice where we're slowing into our bodies. I'd like to invite you to take a moment to just reflect on your journey over the last 30 days, what it has meant to you personally. What have you learned about yourself, your body, your emotional repertoire, your thoughts, and how has that changed? Are you different now than you were 30 days ago in some way? And perhaps it's intangible. Perhaps there's parts of your body that are feeling more limber and stronger. Perhaps it's a change in your attitude about what's possible for you. But please allow yourself a moment to sit into this moment with me, lean in, and really reflect on how you've come along on this journey. The successes that you've experienced, the difficulties. For me personally, guiding you through this 30-day yoga challenge has been incredibly meaningful. It's been difficult to sit down in front of the camera and not actually address people. There's nobody there. It's just me talking to a lens, and that's a little bit difficult, but being able to imagine you and focus on why this journey is important to me. And it's also allowed me to open up into some of my own discomforts and talk about them a little more openly. And I wonder if you've noticed that happening over the 30-day yoga challenge as well. I've also noticed that this yoga challenge has challenged me as a yoga teacher because I'm not in front of you and able to give you specific cues. And so instead, I've really been focusing on the generalities in the practice and also giving much more simple yoga practices than I usually give. And I've actually really enjoyed it. It's brought me back to my roots of therapeutic, gentle yoga, and I'm noticing that it's totally workable. Before we get this practice started, let's begin with just a brief meditation to start our practice. You may wish to be seated and closing your eyes if that's comfortable for you, in an upright, comfortable posture, or if you want to begin with Shavasana, laying on your back, arms splayed out, palms facing up, legs splayed out, ankles rolled out, that's great as well. Don't forget if you're experiencing some low back pain, you know the drill. Bring a bend to the knees, maybe feet flat on the ground. Place a yoga mat rolled up or a towel under your low back just to keep yourself comfortable. All right, let's take a moment here to settle in. Let's have a breath on purpose. Nice big long swig of oxygen, breathing in. Feel the breath filling the body. Pausing to just let the body be full of air. Noticing any sensations of buoyancy. And breathing out, exhaling. Just notice what it's like to be in this moment right now. Taking stock of wherever you are. Noticing any thoughts, feelings, sensations, images that may be on your mind. And allow yourself a moment to reach back in time to when you first started this practice. What was it like to be you? What thoughts, feelings, or sensations did you have in reaction to beginning this practice? And just invite yourself to notice if there's anything that feels relevant or important about that. And what have you learned? What have you learned about yourself, about your body, about your emotional repertoire, about how you respond to things? Have you learned new ways to respond? Take 5 more breaths here in your own time. We'll begin the movement portion of this practice. Let's go ahead and begin this practice on all fours. Now, coming into a tabletop posture, it's really important that we do this purposefully and that you set yourself up for a strong base for success in this practice. Stack the shoulders over top of the wrists. You want your fingers spread wide and planted down into the mat. Stacking your hips over top of the knees. We're going to be here for a while. If you're on a hard surface floor, you might want to try a yoga mat, or you might want to try a folded up towel or blanket underneath the knees to protect you. Even if you're on a yoga mat, it might still just be too hard on your knees. Remember, we're going for a sustainable model here, so why don't you go ahead and take the time to take care of you properly in this practice. I'm sure you're worth the investment. With the tops of the feet placed down onto the mat, you don't want your feet turned in too much or splayed out, so go ahead and line your feet up. Again, making sure that you're aligned with a nice flat spine, and just checking out your hands, checking out the knees, checking out the posture. Let's take a few breaths here to just be in this tabletop posture. Feeling the stability of having your knees and hands flat on the ground. Also, just being thankful for the feet, noticing that the feet even play a role in this posture, even though they're passive and just pressing down into the ground. Beginning just with the hips, we're going to turn the pelvis in, lowering through the belly, dropping the belly down, and then finally lifting the head up on an inhale into our cow pose. And keeping the head and the spine exactly where it is, begin by tilting the pelvis in, then following through the spine, lifting up through the spine, and last dropping the head, coming into your cat pose. Check in with your hands, spreading through the fingers to protect the wrists. On your next exhale, starting just with the pelvis, following through the spine, dropping down, lowering the belly, let the belly hang low. Finally, lifting through the head, the gaze comes forward into our cow pose. Take 2 more rounds of this on your own, moving with your breath. Now, what I'm going to recommend is that you find yourself seated in Sukhasana on the ground. If sitting on the ground isn't workable for you, that's okay. I'm going to give you some adaptations for being in a chair. Now, what we mean by Sukhasana, easy pose, this is meant to be a long-held meditative pose. We're not going to hold it for too long. We're going to get kind of rolling into this yoga practice. But here's what I want you to do. Sitting on the ground with your legs crossed. Now, you may need to lean from side to side in order to move the flesh away from the sit bones, so you get a little bit more of a flatter seat onto the ground. If this is already causing some strain and some stress, which it very well might be, go ahead and grab a towel or a pillow and prop yourself up on it. What you want to do is have your pelvis tilted forward so you can sit nice and tall through the spine, but be tilted forward ever so slightly. Alternatively, if sitting on the ground is not accessible to you, I understand. You can sit on a chair with your feet flat on the ground, and let's just go ahead and place our hands on our laps. Take an inhale, press through the crown of your head, breathe in. Notice what you're feeling in this moment. Exhale, soften your jaw, soften the muscles around the shoulders. Let yourself be tall, but not rigid. Remember that even trees, with all of their height, they still have a level of flexibility to them. If they're rigid, they break. When the wind blows, trees bend with the wind. Allow yourself to be tall, but not rigid. Allow there to be flexibility in your posture. Let's find some length through the spine. And let's go ahead and stretch the legs out forward, maybe flop them back and forth, rotating through your ankles. You might wish to remove any of the blankets or pillows that you have supporting your body. With your feet flat in front of you, having your toes pointing towards you, let's see how much mobility we have here, reaching forward. Maybe wrapping your hands around knees, maybe around shins. Maybe you're able to fold forward so far that you're able to wrap your hands around the ankles or around the feet, drawing in. Whatever's accessible to you here, just having a little bit of, again, a forward fold. Breathing, noticing the sensations of being in this practice. Forward folds are a time to slow down and to draw our attention within. This is a great time to check in with you and take stock of how you may be feeling, any thoughts that may be on your mind, and to really connect with the sensations that you're experiencing in your body. When you're ready, putting some weight into your hands, coming back up, sitting up nice and tall. If you're able to stand, I'd like to invite you to get up on your feet and just make sure that you have a little bit of a cleared area around you. Again, no yoga mat or special yoga clothing is required. Separating your feet about a hip's width apart, and that right there, that cue might be difficult for you. So let's go ahead, let's find a standing posture with your feet flat on the ground and make sure you're on an even surface. And let's go ahead and maybe bring your feet together, big toes together. And then let's just inch the feet apart a little bit until your feet are wide enough that they're not out past your hips, but that your feet are narrowly together. What we're looking for here with the feet being a hip's width apart is a steady posture. If you feel unsteady, you may wish to grab a chair on your left side or a chair on your right side and hold on to the backs of the chairs to steady yourself. Of course, if you use crutches, you may wish to use crutches to steady yourself. Alternatively, you may wish to go to a wall and use the wall to support you or leaning against the wall. Wherever you find yourself, allow your feet, perhaps bare, but definitely not in shoes, to spread your toes. Maybe wiggle your toes and notice the sensation in your feet. Let's bring our attention up to the knees. There's no need to lock the knees. The legs don't need to be perfectly straight, but we want to find some length in the legs. And notice your hips. Notice your alignment of your pelvis. And how you can play with this is maybe experiment with tilting your pelvis forward, almost like you can pour water from a bowl, and then maybe tilting your pelvis back a little bit. And notice how your spine gets involved with that movement as well. See if you can find a nice, even balance where your pelvis isn't tucked under, but also where your pelvis isn't leaning forward all the way. If you run a lot, you may have a pelvis that tilts in one direction or the other. If you're an athlete who sits and rows, you may have a pelvis that tilts forward quite a bit. Just pay attention to the fact that, hey, I have hips, I have a tailbone, I have a pelvis. Find some length through your spine and allow your arms, if you're not using any supports, to be splayed out from your body, palms facing forward. Maybe spreading your fingers. And notice the quality of balance in your body here. Experiment with leaning forward a little bit, putting more pressure into the balls of your feet, taking some pressure out of your heels. Leaning back a little bit, putting a little more pressure into your heels, taking some weight out of the balls of your feet. And if you need to use those supports, that's okay. But allow yourself to be in your body, noticing what it feels like to be balancing here. Inhale to press through the crown of your head, find some length in the spine. If you're like me and you have a sedentary job, my job is sitting in a chair and talking to people for a living, so I find myself hunched forward. I also do a lot of writing, so I find myself in this position where there's a bit of a hump in my neck. So maybe allow yourself to press through the crown of your head. Maybe opening through the chest, you broaden through the chest, you find your shoulders come wide, with your arms splayed out, your palms facing forward. Mountain pose is meant to help you root down through your feet, to stand tall, to have the stability of a mountain. And if you don't feel strong and stable like a mountain, just notice that your mind comes up with judgments and evaluations. This practice is about you and finding what works for you today. From standing, let's go ahead and bring your feet hips width apart. So again, remembering that you can have your toes touching together and then start to inch the feet out. Start to notice where tension comes into your body. You don't want your stance wide-legged. You want your legs nice and close, stacked underneath your hips. Finding some length through the spine. Standing tall, maybe even adopting a mountain posture here. Inhale to press through the crown of your head. Exhale to tuck the chin. Broaden through the chest, really opening up, feeling the chest open, but without bending forward too far, without tilting that bowl and spilling water from the pelvis. Maybe spread your toes. Find your balance here. Using a chair, a table, or a wall if necessary to support your body. I'm going to invite you to lift both arms up above your head. And as you lift your arms up, you may wish to lift your gaze, but notice how that impacts your balance. And see if you can stay with your spine tall in lifting your gaze. You may have a natural tendency to lift your head all the way up, and then all of a sudden you start leaning back. See if you can just lift your gaze through your eyes, and then maybe just a little bit through lifting through your neck. Your chin follows up a little bit. And for me, where my arms are at right now, I'm feeling comfortable having my arms wide, but you may wish to bring your arms in, your hands come together, and just notice how that impacts your shoulders, your trapezoids, even your breathing. Maybe it becomes harder to breathe as your hands come together overhead. And whether your hands are wide, your hands are together, press through your fingers, lifting your gaze, leaning back ever so slightly. And only leaning back to the point where your upper body leans back. If you start to notice your knees or your hips getting involved, come back forward. Still with the gaze lifted, feeling your balance here. And if you're unable to keep both arms up, you may wish to keep one arm down with a hand on the back of a chair or on a table or on a wall for some balance. Just allowing yourself, in whatever iteration is possible for you, to have a brief standing back bend. Maybe wiggle those toes. Remind yourself, hey, I've got toes today. Maybe noticing your gratitude for the balance that your feet bring you, for the experience of proprioception we have through our feet. Inhale, reach a little further. Exhale, bringing the arms forward, followed by the gaze, bringing the hands back down. Let's end with our hands at heart center here. Take a breath. Notice what it feels like to finish off this standing back bend. I'm now going to invite you into Trikonasana, or triangle pose. This is where the wall is going to come in handy. Coming out of your mountain pose, we're going to walk over to the wall. And I want you to position your right hip against the wall. With your feet together, your right foot right against the wall. And again, we need a clear kind of open space here. We're now going to step the left foot back. so that the left heel is against the wall, but rather than the toes pointing forward, the left foot, the toes are pointing out at a right angle. The distance between your forward foot, your right foot, and your left foot is not specifically prescribed. We want your legs to be straight, but don't lock your knees. And we also want you to be comfortable here. It shouldn't be extremely strenuous to have your legs at this distance apart. I also recommend for everybody to have a chair close by or a table that you can use for balance as we get deeper into the posture. You also are going to want from this posture here with the right foot against the wall, the back foot against the wall, you're going to want to be having your back leaning against the wall here. Inhale to reach your right arm and left arm up, similar to our Warrior Two pose. And as if I was grabbing onto your right wrist and starting to pull you forward, go ahead and bend towards the right. Be careful not to collapse through the right side body. You want to stay nice and strong and engaged here. Now, your side angle pose here, or your triangle pose, might not look very deep, but what we're going for is a bending action where you're beginning to tilt from the top of the body. If you need to bring a bit of a bend to the right knee, that's okay. And this is where that table or chair come in handy. You can reach that right hand all the way down, touching the top of the chair or touching the top of the table in order to support your body. Again, making sure to stay nice and engaged through the right side body, not collapsing. You may wish to keep the left arm wherever it is, or maybe even reach it up higher, but notice where you have to compensate in your body in order to move that left arm. And this is why we're using the wall as a support. Maybe even bringing your gaze up towards the left hand, wherever it is. And if it's accessible to you, again, be very careful and really pay attention to the movement in your body. Using the right arm as a support on the chair or tabletop, you may begin to pop up just off of that left foot ever so slightly, even coming onto the tips of your toes. And if your mind is messing with you here, saying like, I must bring my left leg up parallel to the floor, notice that you have that thought process. This posture here is about playing around with balance, learning how to be flexible in ourselves, in our experience of the moment, and in our bodies. And don't be afraid to use that wall to lean against for balance. If you find yourself in triangle pose and your foot is off the ground or just hovering off the ground, maybe your toes are touching and lifting, I'm not going to leave you stranded here. Here's what I want you to do. Now, as if I'm there and I'm grabbing onto your left wrist and I'm lifting you up out of the posture, so come up out of the pose, leaning back to the left, planting that left foot on the ground. Let's come back to our mountain pose for a moment. Feet hips width apart, arms at the side of the body, maybe opening the palms of the hands, shining out. Inhale, breathe in. Find some length through the spine. Exhale, tuck the chin. Just be in this moment. And whatever's showing up for you, any judgments, any thoughts or evaluations, breathe them in, notice them. Exhale, just be in this moment. All right, let's try the other side. So this time you're going to have your left foot against the wall, your left hip against the wall, toes pointed forward. And don't forget that if you had a chair or a table on one side, you might need to move the chair or the table onto the other side in order to accommodate for the fact that you're gonna need some support. You're gonna need something to reach out and touch to keep yourself balanced in this triangle pose. Step the right foot back, and only so far that you can have the legs spread a little bit and that you can reach through the upper body so that we can reach left. But you don't want the feet to be so far apart that you're putting a load on your system and that now this is like a deep stretch just having your legs this far apart. Inhale to bring your arms up. We'll face left, looking past the left fingers. And this time, reaching left, as if I'm pulling you by your left wrist forward. And remember to be careful not to collapse through the left side body. Bring a bit of a bend into that left knee. You don't want to have an aggressive bend as if we were doing like a lunge or something very deep, but enough of a bend that you're protecting the leg and giving your body some flexibility. Reaching that right arm up And this might be the expression of your triangle pose today. Use the wall as a support. Don't be afraid to lean back against the wall, and maybe even experimenting with popping that right foot off of the ground. Maybe coming onto the tippy toes on the right foot, maybe lifting the right foot all the way, but using that chair or table with the left hand as a support to keep you balanced. And if you really want to challenge yourself here, maybe even looking up towards that left hand, moving your gaze up. And if you really want to challenge yourself here, using your left hand for balance, but with your right arm up, wherever it is, bringing your gaze up to your right hand and looking past your right fingers. Take a couple breaths here to be in this posture, noticing anything that shows up for you. And if you find your foot just hovering over the ground, or if your foot is planted on the ground, that's fine. Maybe that's your triangle pose for today. Wherever you're at, as if your right wrist was being pulled up out of the posture, come out of the pose, dropping your right foot back onto the ground. Let's come back to our mountain pose. And on your next inhale, let's go ahead and reach our arms up, breathing in as you lift, lifting the gaze. Exhale, bring your hands down to your heart center. And really breathe through the nose. Let your breath move in an audible way. Inhale, breathe in all the way. Lifting the gaze, exhale, bring your hands back down to your heart center. Repeat this 3 more times on your own, breathing in to reach up. Exhale, the hands come down to heart center. Pausing here, allowing your vision to be fixed just over top of you, the tops of your fingers. Maybe your vision goes out of focus. Without closing your eyes all the way, you may wish to allow your eyes to flutter shut, but only close to the point where you can still let a little bit of light in. There's still a little bit of sensory experience of light there. Inhale to press through the crown of the head, find that height through the spine. Exhale, tuck the chin. Feel the palms pressing together. Feel places where you feel warmth in the body or other sensations. Breathing in all the way, whether your eyes are closed, open. Feel the sensations of breath in your body. Endings can be hard for a lot of people. Our 30-day yoga challenge has come to an end. Just notice any thoughts, feelings, or sensations that show up with me saying that. And breathe out. As we've ended so many of these practices, the light in me acknowledges and bows to the light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for your time and your energy sticking with me on this 30-day yoga challenge. I hope that we can stay connected. Please do share this yoga series with any of your friends, anybody that you think could benefit from this work. It definitely is reinforcing to me and helps spread the word about this yoga challenge and about my channel. Stay in touch, sign up for my mailing list, and comment. Your words matter to me. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this work. It's been really meaningful for me to be on this journey with you. Thanks.